What's up guys, welcome to another week's episode of GetPsyched. Now this week we've got a video for the psychology students of you out there, and we're going to be looking at acing your counselling psychology doctoral interview. Don't forget guys, if you're enjoying today's video, then you can like the video, you can also comment on the video, and I'll be sure to get back to you if you've got any questions whatsoever. And if you're enjoying GetPsyched as a whole, then don't forget to subscribe to us, and you can hit that little bell next to the subscribe button and you'll get weekly reminders every time we upload. Now, there's a very good reason as to why I made this video. Currently, we're kind of in the midst of a lot of psychology doctoral interviews, but the counselling psychology doctoral interview is kind of underway at a number of universities, and I have literally been inundated with emails, DMs, texts, all kinds of things about how do you prepare for your counselling psychology doctoral interview. Now, as a newly qualified counselling psychologist, I'm probably in a pretty good position to give you as much insight and value as I possibly can on how to ace your counselling psychology doctoral interview. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm not necessarily going to go directly into what counselling psychology is all about, but if you click the little video link above my head here, you can check out one of our more popular videos on what the difference is between clinical psychology and counselling psychology. So if you are new into the world of counselling psychology, or if you're just considering it and you came across this video, this probably isn't the exact video for you right now, but the one above my head is. That will give you a little bit more information about what counselling psychology is and what clinical psychology is. But if you're in the process of becoming a counselling psychologist, then you're going to want to make sure to watch this video right to the end, because I'm going to give you all my tips on how to ace your interview. So let's get right into it. Number one is people care about your personality more than they care about your qualifications. Now, I speak a lot at, or did before COVID, speak a lot at psychology undergraduate conferences, and I spoke a lot to psychology students and graduates, and one of the things that people used to always say to me is, how important is it for me to get a first or a merit or a distinction in my degree? Now, don't get me wrong, these kind of things are great to pursue. It shows a level of ambition, it shows that intellect and that desire to know more within the world of psychology. But if you go into these interviews, counselling psychology interview in particular, and think that your first or your distinction is going to get you through that interview, you're severely mistaken. Counselling psychology is a profession about people. Don't get me wrong, we're going to look at this in a little bit as part of counselling psychology being the scientist practitioner model, where you're going to have to understand a little bit about research and academia and also being a people practitioner. But you have to understand that counselling psychology is about people. It's about working with people. It's about being in therapy with people and working in that one-to-one relational depth way. So you've got to make sure that your personality is coming across in that interview, that you have a real desire and passion for people, as opposed to just leaning solely on your qualifications. The other thing to keep in mind is you're not going to be the only one with a first or a distinction that's going for a counselling psychology doctoral interview. It's the same for clinical psychology, really. So if you think that these qualifications are the thing that's going to get you into these doctoral programs, then you're sorely mistaken. So you've got to make sure that you get that personality across that says, I'm somebody that's willing to be taught, that's interested in people, that wants to learn more. That's the kind of personality that people want to see in this interview process. Okay, my second point is to understand a bit about counselling psychology. What I mean by this is not that you have to have it all figured out. You don't have to know everything about counselling psychology, but understanding a little bit about what counselling psychology is, some of the key principles, humanism, pluralism, person-centered therapy. These are the kind of things, the scientist practitioner model, the reflective practitioner model, some of the philosophical underpinnings of counselling psychology. If you can understand some of these things and get that across in your interview, that's going to show a real interest in this division, in counselling psychology. You don't want to go into this interview and know nothing about counselling psychology. Counselling psychology in itself can be quite a complex thing to grasp, because it has a lot of branches to it that are similar to the likes of clinical psychology, or similar to counsellors or therapists or psychotherapists. So there's a lot of overlay, but there's some real identifiable features of counselling psychology that you need to be fully aware of. Well, fully aware, you need to be partially aware at least, and get that across in your interview that shows a level of knowledge and interest. I'm going to put a couple of links down. I don't actually have my bookcase here. If you're a veteran viewer of GetPsyched, you know I used to have my bookcase right behind me, but situations change a little bit, so I don't have my bookcase with all my counselling psychology books in it with me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the description a number of different links to some books that are really, really helpful for really all counselling psychologists in general. I still use a lot of these books, but particularly for people that are just in the start of their counselling psychology career and training program. So There's a lot of books in there that illustrate a bit about counselling psychology and things that you need to consider as a counselling psychologist that will be really helpful for you in this interview process. My third key point is one that people always overlook, and is about, can you work within a group or multidisciplinary team process? Now, when you're training, you're going to be training with, up to 35, maybe even 40 other individuals on a counselling psychology program. One of the things that you want to get across in your interview is, can you work within a team like that? There's going to be many people of different perspectives, different backgrounds, different training, education, demographics, age. Can you work within an eclectic group of people like that? How do you function in a group of people like that? Can you, hold your own principles and your own understandings, but also be respectful and mindful and empathic of those that may differ from you, of people that you may be trained with? That's one of the things that I always think is really important to get across in this interview, is you're going to spend a lot of time with these people. You're going to be training a lot. You may even be working with them in placement. How do you work like that? Are you somebody that can work in a group setting like that? A lot of what counselling psychologists do, at times at least anyway, can be within a multidisciplinary team network. If you get qualified as a counselling psychologist and go into the NHS, the likelihood is you might work within an MDT. So how do you work with people of different training? Clinical psychologists, psychiatrists, GPs, nurses, psychiatric nurses. How do you work with these individuals? Can you work collaboratively with them to a common goal? And actually, if you're able to get that across in your interview and show how you'll be able to do that in your training, then that's going to be a real bonus for you in your counselling psychology interview process. Okay, my next key point is one that sounds a little obvious, but actually when you dig into it is something that people can actually mess up on a little bit. It's about considering how your experience has informed counselling psychology to be the next step for you. Now, what I don't mean is go into this interview and just tell them about how your experience has been really helpful and now you're here. What you have to do is connect your experience to why counselling psychology is next. Okay, so if you've had experience as an assistant psychologist, if you've had an experience as a support worker or a healthcare support worker or telephone counsellor or something to that effect, how has that experience helped inform counselling psychology to be the next step? Okay, so why is counselling psychology the missing piece of the puzzle for you? What have you learned in those experiences that have informed you about counselling psychology? What have those experiences given you that allows you to make counselling psychology your next step? What haven't you had in those experiences that counselling psychology training will provide you with? These are the kind of things that you really need to connect more of the dots with. It's not just about going in and saying, here's my experience and now I'm here in this interview. It's about, here's my experience, here's what I learned, here's why this is connected to counselling psychology, here's what I haven't learned yet and why I think that's connected to counselling psychology and why I think this training program will help fill those gaps. Those are the kind of connections that you need to make and make evident in your interview in order for that to be successful. Okay, next key point is, are you somebody that can be taught? Now, this is something that, two passions of my life, psychology and basketball. This is where the two kind of overlink. This is a really important thing for me, and it was something that came across in my interview as well, and actually has come up a lot in my basketball career. If people who are GetPsyched viewers or veteran viewers know that I used to play a lot of basketball, big passion of mine. One of the things that they talk about in these doctoral programs is, are you somebody that can be taught? Are you somebody that goes into these programs thinking you know it all? Or are you somebody that goes into these programs and falls at the first sign of defeat or failure? Those are not the kind of people that succeed in doctoral programs, okay? If you go in and think you know it all, you're going to fall flat on your face very quickly and quite hard. If you go in thinking that a failure means, or a failed assignment or something to that effect means that you just are no good and you need to wipe this all off, you're not going to succeed, okay? You're not going to progress. So are you somebody that can be taught? Can you go into this doctoral program, this counselling psychology doctoral program, and be open-minded, be available to learn? Can you also take failures? Because the failures, I failed numerous assignments in my counselling psychology doctoral program. Can you go in and fail assignments? Obviously that's going to be difficult, but can you learn from them and allow that to inform you for the next assignment or for your work with clients in the future? That's what it looks like for somebody to be teachable. I had a coach, this is where the basketball part comes in. I had a coach who used to say he wanted players that were coachable. He didn't want players who were, incredibly, of course he wanted players who were talented, but he didn't want just talent or people who were able. He wanted players who were coachable, who could learn from their failures, who could take on board new content or new information and adapt. And I think that's something that you really want to get across in that interview as well, that You're at this point not knowing it all yet. There's still a lot that you don't know, but you're willing to be open-minded. Take the inevitable failures and rejections and falls that will come from a doctoral program, but know that that will help inform you to become a better counselling psychologist if and when you qualify. So if you can get that across, that you are somebody that can be taught, again, a big bonus. Next key point is that it's a good thing that you don't know it all. I know one of the points was you have to have a bit of a background understanding of counselling psychology, and that's absolutely the case. But if you go in thinking that you know it all, that's not going to look good in that interview, because if you know it all, why the heck are you here? You know, why are you in an interview process if you know all of this stuff? It's about making clear that you have a general understanding, again, connecting how your experiences informed this to be your next step, but also that you're open-minded to the belief and the knowledge that you don't have it all figured out yet. It's okay to go into this interview and not know everything about counselling psychology. No one's expecting that. It's okay to go into this interview and be nervous about the prospect of seeing clients one-to-one and not knowing really how that's going to look like and how you're going to work, you know, how you're going to do that. That's an inevitable anxiety that a lot of students face. So being clear about that and being open to that, being congruent about that, I think is really, really important for a successful counselling psychology interview. A next key point for me is really about what we call the scientist practitioner model in counselling psychology. And basically what you want to get across in this interview is holding both your interpersonal, relational depth work that you want to do with people in therapy, but also the research and empirical side of you, the scientist part. Scientist practitioner, that's a key part of counselling psychology. Because research, and you're going to do a lot of academic work in this, there's going to be a huge amount of academic work in this doctoral program. Can you hold both? Can you be that empathic, relational depth practitioner and also a scientist fundamentally? And how do you prove that you can do that? Okay, second to last key point is, and it's kind of similar to one of the previous points, but why counselling psychology and why now? Why are you not on another psychology doctoral program? Why are you not looking at clinical psychology? Or, you know, and one of the arguments often is that people that go into counselling psychology are the ones that couldn't get on the clinical psychology ones. I can tell you for a fact that's not the case. I could have got on clinical psychology, although I'm sure it would have taken a number of years in the application. At least I had the qualifications and the experience for it. And I chose counselling. Why did I choose counselling? Why didn't I go down the clinical route? Why are you not doing sports and exercise psychology? Why are you not doing health? Why are you not doing occupational psychology? These are the kind of things you want to get across, okay? So you want to make sure that you make it very, very clear why counselling psychology is important for you and why it now. So why are you not doing this 10 years from now? Why did you not do this 5 years ago? You know, if you're a little bit older, if you're a mature student, why is this taking you so long to get to this point? Not that that's wrong or bad, it's just why. And if you're straight out of your psychology undergrad, why are you choosing this moment to pursue counselling psychology? These are the questions that are very subjective, but really need answered in that interview process. Okay, the last key point is to get across your career aspirations or your initial ideas of career aspirations in that doctoral interview. What are you actually going to do with this doctorate when you get it, if and when you get it? What are you going to do with that? What's your career ideas after this doctorate is done? That's always something that is tied back to counselling psychology, and it's important to know a little bit about what your career looks like and why you're actually on the program. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching this week's episode of GetPsyched. This week we had a video for the psychology students out there and we looked at acing your counselling psychology doctoral interview. I really hope this was helpful for you guys who are looking at becoming counselling psychologists. I wish all of you the very, very best. If you've enjoyed today's video, then make sure to like it. You can comment as well. And if you've enjoyed GetPsyched as a whole, then you can subscribe to us and you'll get weekly reminders every time we upload if you hit that little bell next to it. Thanks again for watching guys, and hopefully catch you next week.